Just,
First bit,
yep.
second bit.
Just on the first bit, land use, land capability, biodiversity, water production systems, they're all interrelated, interconnected. And putting up the capacity building slide probably is a really good reference point that we need to nurture a lot more of the awareness and understanding of the connectivity of those elements that link a system together and that they're not looked at in isolation. People have... there's a range of elements of, the level of awareness and understanding. We've got a lot of absentee land ownership, so it's a lot of visitation versus permanent land holdings in the region. So just even running a few workshops recently, the energy and the questions might be seen as, low-level questions about landscape and function, etc., in a more traditional agricultural or production system zone. But down there, it's triggered my thinking that there's a lot of that stuff, capacity building, that there is a lot of opportunity and possibility with to really link how land fragmentation, wildlife corridors may be linked in with production systems, what we can do in our landscape, identify our soils where we have some level of productive capacity versus maybe areas on our place like we do in bigger systems where it goes to remnant veg, or we're really selective about how we utilise that land in terms of maintaining and, resilience in our natural resources. Awesome opportunity for growth and capacity building on that whole front in our region, definitely. And I'll just say this, my role came out of doing the audit when the council had confidence to put in a full-time position with someone with an agricultural and natural systems background. So it's just a starting point now with the good baseline data to pursue a lot of stuff on the front that you've mentioned. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Your second question was to do with optimum size of farms and viability. If we're talking about supply chains, I suspect the answer is yes, that we would have to look carefully at that. I know it's quite challenging in the work that we've done with our regional beef supply, of thinking how we'd be able to provide a consistency of product throughout the year. I don't think we can. I think we just have to face up to the fact that, like so many other products, there is a seasonality involved as well. If we're talking about the cultural, social aspect of enhancement of food at farmers markets, some of which are genuine, some of which are different, then it doesn't really matter what size the producer is. If that producer has a passion for what he or she is doing, the experience will be there regardless of the size.
Great question. It would be awesome to have a connected network of agricultural people sitting in these regions. I found myself a little bit isolated, I have to admit, except I was lucky my first boss in the Department of Ag E&ADA, who happens to be here today, works up at Yarra Ranges, so it was a great reference point to connect into someone working in a similar environment. In the audit, we identified about 5 or 6 opportunities for action that were presented to Council at the end of last year to endorse, and they were around looking at involvement in the Bunyip Food Belt, capacity building, teasing out a bit more on aquacultural opportunities for the region, food branding and awareness, and agri-tourism also. We'll never feed the world on the peninsula, but we have identified that we have a role to play, and we've got a role intra that we need that's been very ad hoc within our region. There's a lot that can be achieved on that front, as well as leveraging and collaboration. I'll just mention the DPI have come back into the region. I worked for the DPI years ago, and when I started down there, I kept ringing. I knew I'd find someone, and then I found the Small Landholder Information Service, who have come in and run 3 workshops for me on managing a small beef herd. They said they hadn't had a presence there for 12 years. I've pulled them in with their resources and capacity, and I plan on doing that on many, many fronts, utilising a lot of my larger scale agricultural networks also to bring in what we need around, especially soil health and landscape management as a starting point. The council are really supportive, and they've said to me, Gilly, just one step at a time in your shoes, and we've given you a lot of capacity for creativity and networking awareness, and see what unfolds. And how awesome is that? It's a pretty special job, I can tell you. Did you have anything, Kev, you were on? I just wanted to finish with this. I was sitting in my office the other day, and I read this at uni the other week as part of my presentation, but I was dressed as a carrot. You're missing out on the carrot suit today, but I think you'll get the drift of what what I'm trying to explain, probably more outside of this audience than the people here today. It's called a peri-urban space for all and one to grace. On the edge of the big cities, but before the bush does start, lies a very important region that separates the two apart. It's known as peri-urban, where a lot is going on, more than most imagine in this divide amongst the throng. Peri-urban, must you ask? What on earth does all that mean? Well, if you've got some interest, I can set for you the scene. It takes no time to travel down the freeway with much ease to open green wide paddocks scattered all amongst the trees. To look a little closer though, one clearly can observe paddocks full of ripening produce up against a road reserve. For the space is quite restricted with high demand to fill the gaps, with houses, sheds and buildings and put new suburbs on the maps. A peri-urban paradise that is what you all can see, the oceans, hills and shopping all in close proximity. There's food and fun and fabulous adventures near and far, all within a driving distance from the city in a car. They come in droves, they move their gear, a tree change does belie, whilst working up the city on the freeway they do fly. And others are so lucky for they live and work and play. It's day in peri-urban mode, there is no other way. But we cannot take for granted that all will be okay, for life is ever changing, much to one's dismay. Demand for land so precious is a matter of such course, and we need to make so sure we protect our main resource. So bear a thought, please, can you sow for the soils and the water, for we need to value what we have, we really, really oughta. The birds, the trees, the landscape are the assets to behold. We sit on what could be so termed our rich but natural gold. These regions are fragile and we must take the best of care to ensure they are protected and enhance their natural flair. They are deemed for all and sundry, the landscape and the hedges, known so far and wide as the city's critical green wedges. So pause a moment, take a breath and scan the view around and help your peri-urban region stand its fragile ground. Thank you.